What's keeping you up at night? Well, what's keeping me up at night is my baby. There are those nights where I wake up and I'm nursing her, and then it's time for me to go back to sleep, and my mind is running, running, running. But I've learned some strategies, and Gigi's really taught me some things over the years, and that's what we want to share with you to, again, clear that out so that hopefully I can move through that quickly and go back to sleep.
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm Makena Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Hi everyone, Makena here, and I am recording a solo podcast episode this week. Funny enough, I'm actually visiting my mom, Gigi, who is usually on the show with me, and I'm here in Houston visiting her, and our babysitter fell through. So real life moment, she is watching Sienna, my little one, while I record. So that's what led us here today, and I'm really excited to share this episode with you. We have been talking about what would be of the most value for you, and a theme that's come up recently in our coaching is kind of these things that keep you up at night. So in other words, if you ever wake up in the middle of the night and your mind is racing and you have a million different things going on and you can't get back to sleep, or if you have a hard time getting to sleep in the first place because you lay down and all of a sudden your mind is flooded with all the things that you didn't think of during the day, or maybe you did but you're worrying about things. So how do you navigate through those things that keep you up at night, right? So there's different approaches here, and we want to talk about a couple of different aspects of this to help you sleep better from this perspective. So we've done an episode on sleep, which we can link in the show notes, but that was more around, how to optimize your sleep, which is a very different thing. Here we're talking about the mental and emotional component of sleeping deeper, because you clear your mind and you can fall asleep, hopefully, easily and joyfully. So what's keeping you up at night? Well, what's keeping me up at night is my baby. No, I'm kidding. But actually, sometimes, right? And, there are those nights where I wake up and I'm nursing her, and then it's time for me to go back to sleep, and my mind is running, running, running. But I've learned some strategies, and Gigi's really taught me some things over the years, and that's what we want to share with you to, again, clear that out so that hopefully I can move through that quickly and go back to sleep. So a great word for this that Gigi was using when we were planning this episode is the word ruminating. Ruminating. I almost want to look up the definition right here while I'm recording. Ruminating, so I can read it to you. To ruminate is to think deeply about something. And that's kind of a very high level definition. To examine attentively or deliberately. It's implies careful weighing of a problem, or often prolonged thinking about a problem. Another definition is repetitive thinking or dwelling on negative feelings and distress and their causes and consequences. So it can have this sort of not so great, implication sometimes. When we're ruminating, it's just we're going around and around and around. And so when you feel like you're doing this, the simplest, most effective thing that you can do in our experience is to write everything down that's on your mind. So if it's the middle of the night, you might have to wake up and get a pen and paper and put everything down, because it feels so huge in your mind. But then when you get it down onto paper, it's often not as much as you think it is, or it might feel that way in the night. But then when you get up in the morning, you're rested, hopefully have a clearer mind, then you can really look at it and see how you want to tackle everything that's on your mind. And we're going to talk about how you can do that here in this episode. So this can either take the form of just a list where you list out almost like bullet points maybe it's things that you need to do, maybe it's worries or concerns or fears. So you could just list it out if that's the easiest for you. Or if you're more of like a journaler, you like to really write your thoughts, you could also do it that way. And this isn't something you're going to like hold on to. So this doesn't need to be in your most beautiful journal. I would get, scratch paper or just loose paper, or do it on a note in your phone, maybe. Ideally wearing blue light blocking glasses so you're not on your phone in the middle of the night messing up your melatonin. But getting it all out of your head onto paper or onto a digital paper is the first step. So then when you've dumped it all out onto paper, then in the morning, once you are better rested, you're going to come back to that piece of paper, whether it's a physical piece of paper or a digital one, and you're going to go through everything you wrote down and put it through a few filters. And the simplest filters, some of the ones that we often use, are, first of all, what can you let go of? So sometimes we're worried about something, or we're thinking we need to do something, and the truth is there's not a lot we can do about it. Or maybe it's just not the time right now. So is there anything you can let go of and just say, you know what, I'm going to make peace around that in myself. I'm going to relax around it, and I'm just going to let it go. And hopefully you can cross off at least a couple of things through this filter of what can I let go of? Then you can go, is there anything I wrote down that can wait until later? So maybe I don't want to let go of it completely. I'm worried I'll forget, or, it's just not a priority right now, or a top priority, but I do need to do this, or I do want to focus on this. So if that can wait until a later date, then the thing I always do is I put it on my calendar for a month from now or 2 months from now to revisit it. So I just put a little date with myself, a meeting with myself on my calendar so that I don't forget. And I write down anything that, isn't a priority right now, but is something that I do want to make sure happens at a later date. When that day comes, then I can assess, okay, is now the time, or do I put it off again? So first filter was, what can I let go of? And the second filter is, what can wait? What can wait until later? And then putting that actually on your calendar. And the third bucket, or the third filter we're going to use here is there anything on this list or in this writing that I can delegate, that I can hand off to somebody else and have them support me with it, either take it on for me or support me with it? And that really brings us kind of to the second part of what we want to talk about here, which is systems of support. How do you get supported in your life? And this is something we've talked about on the podcast before, but it's always worth revisiting, and it's definitely worth revisiting in the context of this conversation. So the way you look at, delegating is, I often go, what are the biggest pressures in your life right now, personally or professionally, that could potentially, again, be taken on by somebody else if they got trained on how to do it, or that you could have somebody get in and support you with it. So right now I'm in a phase of, I have a newborn baby. She's 3 months old, and I'm really working on setting up what we would call our family system. So we have a nanny who comes in part-time, house cleaners once a month, just those simple things in terms of support. But it's not just about hiring the people, if that's something you can do. It's really about looking to see even the rhythm and flow of our week. So one area of pressure for us after the baby was born was we had no time for each other anymore, right? This is a very common thing in relationships once you have a child or multiple children, is you're so full on taking care of the child that there's really no time, maybe when they're napping, but even then you're kind of distracted. It's like You don't know how long they're going to be asleep. And so how do you carve out time for your relationship and also time for yourself? So this is one of the examples of an area that was a pressure for us in those early weeks. And so once we got through, let's say the first 6 to 8 weeks after she was born, I said, okay, what's a system I could put in place here? Or where could we get some support here? So we were hiring a nanny and she was coming in on weekdays part-time to help. But then I said, well, what if she came in, my husband, Sonny, was working full time. And I said, well, what if she came in on the weekends for a few hours? And then you and I really took that time to be quality time with the two of us. So if there's things we need to talk about or work on, or we just want to have a long conversation, just time for you and me where there's no distraction, not needing to be there for our little one. And we can really just make it about the two of us. And so that was a system that we put in place in this case where we got support. So not exactly something we delegated 100%, although I guess we delegated childcare in that case during those hours. And that helped to alleviate that pressure of, the two of us feeling like we didn't have time for each other. And so that's what I mean. What is the biggest pressure right now, or there might be multiple for you personally and then professionally? So you want to really look at your list or your journaling and go, what here, if I got it cleared up, would just take a huge weight off and would be so supportive? And then is there something here that I can delegate? And if so, what would that be? Now, if you don't have the financial means to hire somebody to support you in that area, then you get to get creative. Okay, is this something that I could get my spouse to support me with, or a friend? Is this something I could trade with somebody? There's a lot of different ways to get support that may not mean just straightforward hiring somebody. So you want to really get creative there and go, how could I approach this? What would I do? And something I read years ago that I wanted to mention here is, it was in an Alison Armstrong book, and I do not remember which book it was. Maybe Keys to the Kingdom, maybe. So Alison Armstrong is a relationship and communication coach, a lot like my mom, but has her own flair. And one of the things that I loved that she shared in one of her books was, in a partnership, having different areas that each partner owns. And so an example is, in our relationship, Sonny owns taking care of our vehicles. So we've really applied this concept over the years where we have regular conversations about what he's going to own and what I'm going to own. And so taking care of our vehicles is his. And so for the most part, he's the one to get the oil changed, to make sure, I might jump in on some things and help him, but to make sure the registrations are up to date, anything like that needs to happen with our cars. An area that I own is travel. So 95% of the time, unless it's a work trip for him, that's purely, I'm not involved in it all. But if it's any kind of travel that we're doing as a family, which we do a lot, then I just take that on. That's something I enjoy doing. I research the plane tickets and the rental car. I handle most things related to our travel. For example, we're on this trip right now, and he literally said to me, we were heading to the airport, and he was like, wait, we were flying into Austin to see family there, and then we were driving to Houston to see my mom here. And he was like, wait, so we're flying into one city and flying out of the other? And then he was like, what's happening with the rental car? How's that working? And I was like, no, we're dropping it off in a different city. And he was like, oh, okay. But we were like on the way to the airport, and he had no idea, right, what the trip was going to look like, because that's an area that I own, and he had felt concerned about it or thought to ask. And I think that's just a great example. I don't mind that. I actually enjoy it. And so that has become one of my areas. And so this can get as big as kind of whole categories of areas like this, or as granular as, who takes out the trash the majority of the time. So that's one that Sonny owns. But of course, I jump in there sometimes and I also take out the trash. But for the most part, that's his arena, right? Whereas I might have something else. I do most of our laundry. So it seems silly, right, when we break it down to that level, but it takes so much stress and pressure out of things, because if you're both kind of always tag teaming on everything, if you are in a relationship, then it just feels like a lot of work for both of you and a lot of mental effort for both of you. But if you can own certain areas, then it frees that part of your brain up and you know, okay, that's my partner's area. They've got this. So that's something you can think about as well. If you are in partnership or even in your family system, your family dynamic with your kids, you know, there might be certain areas that certain kids own. And I'm thinking about growing up, I loved to grocery shop and cook. And so that was an area that at times in my teens and stuff, I really took on. And I did most of the grocery shopping and some of the cooking for our family. And so you can even get your kids involved in this and really see what are areas that they might like to own. And that gives them a sense of responsibility. And it takes, again, something off of your plate. So you're not trying to take it all on. And that's something we see a lot with women in our work with them is kind of taking a lot of these things on. And that can lead to these staying up in the middle of the night or waking up in the middle of the night, thinking of the million things you need to do. So we've talked about a lot of different things already, right? So you're ruminating, you get up, you write it all down. Then you're going to look at what can you let go of, what can wait and put it on the calendar for later, and what can you delegate. And delegating doesn't just mean hiring help. It can mean trading. It can mean looking at areas that you own and areas that somebody else in your family or your partnership dynamic owns. So there's a lot of ways to get creative around this. Or if you do have the ability to hire some help, then that's also really great to look at here. So help could be a house cleaner once a month like we do, or weekly, or however often you want. It could be help organizing, right? If you are someone that's just not organized or you just don't have the time, you could get someone to come in and support you. It doesn't need to be necessarily a professional organizing service. You could go into maybe local Facebook groups and, you know, people looking for gig jobs and see if there's anybody that's a great organizer that would come in for a few hours. Or there's a lot of different ways that you can get creative and approach this. It could be childcare, so getting support like we have the nanny part-time, you know, a babysitter from time to time, so you can have a date night. So childcare is definitely a type of support you can hire. A virtual assistant is one that we often talk about and support our clients, you know, in thinking through how they can hire somebody or how to delegate to those people. A lot of times this is an area that people struggle with. I was one of those people where I thought I had to do everything myself because I did it better, quote unquote, than anybody else could do it. And that was just the way I operated for a really long time because I am a very effective person at getting things done. And Gigi, when we were growing our business, was like, Makena, you can't hold all of this. There's no way. You don't have the time, and you're stressed and you're pressured and you're overwhelmed. So we need to get some help. And we hired our first VA, and which, by the way, if you don't know what that is, it's a virtual assistant. And at first it was like pulling teeth trying to get me to delegate anything. And I was like, this is too slow. It takes too long. She doesn't know how to do things. And Gigi just said, you need to slow down. You need to train her on each thing exactly how you want it. And when she comes back and does it, go back again, give her feedback. And it's going to feel like it's taking so much time, but I promise you it's going to free you up in the end. And she was so right that I trained that first assistant so well that she was like a second, you know, set of, not me, but just like, I could just tell her something after a few months and she did it better than I could do it and knew exactly what I wanted. And she worked with us for years, that assistant, and became our first real, you know, long-term full-time team member. And then we've had multiple others since. And it's just such a great feeling to have kind of that team that's like a well-oiled machine, or even just that one person who could take on so much, you know, personally, but also professionally. Or vice versa, maybe more so professionally, but also sometimes helping personally if that's something that you hire them to do. So virtual assistant is another great one, or an in-person assistant. There's many, many different ways that you can get support. You can hire somebody to come in and cook meals. You can hire, there's a lot if you're going to get into the hiring arena. And it's really to go again, what is the area that you feel the most pressured by or you don't want to do? And then who could come in and support you with that? And I do want to reference an episode because we went much deeper into this, which is Every Pressure Needs a System. I believe that's the name of the episode. We'll link it in the show notes. And this is really going deeply into this concept of where are those pressures and how do you get support? And so we talk about some things that I've talked about here, but we also go much deeper. So this is basically your system, your flow when you're up in the middle of the night thinking about a million different things and you can't go to sleep. Now, these are very much geared towards tasks and things that might be overwhelming you. Sometimes what's keeping you up at night is more emotional or, something you're worried about, let's say. And if that's the case, then this still kind of works in the sense that you definitely want to write it down, get it out of your brain. Otherwise, you're just going around and around and around. Writing it down somehow pulls it out of your brain and gives you the ability to get a little bit of space from it and a little bit of perspective. And then you can ask yourself some of those same questions. Can I let this go? Is this something I can just let go of? Or is there any kind of support I could get around this? Maybe you need to talk it through with somebody. Maybe you have a coach or a therapist and you need to have a conversation with them or a family member for that matter. Usually if it's child related, my sister Mariah is the person that I call. She's, been a parenting coach for years and has 2 young babies of her own. And this is just really her wheelhouse. Or sometimes Gigi. Gigi, it's other kinds of things that might be coming up in my life. And so really, again, writing it down and going, can I just let this go? If not, okay, what kind of support do I need? And, or is it something that I'm going around and around about, but really it's not something I need to focus on right now. I can put it off for later. So the same system really applies. And again, you might need more support there if it is something emotional in the sense of talking it through or working that through yourself. If you are someone that prays or meditates or, you have something like that you do that helps you make peace, then that can be another basically system, for lack of a better word, is okay, I write it all out and then I say a prayer and I give it up to God, for example, and just say, let your will be known. Or, I meditate on it and I, let it go. So whatever that process is for you, you can create your own repetitive, like a process that you could do again and again. And that then allows you to make that peace within yourself so you can go to sleep. If you can't tell, I'm a sleep person. Sleep is very important to me. So I love this topic. And that is a little bit of how to shift and let go of the things that are keeping you up at night. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. You can email me at Makena, Makena, at wayofthemuse.com. And yeah, we'd love to also hear what other topics you want to hear from us. We're always curious about that. We usually share from our own lives and from things that we're seeing with our clients and our coaching. And so as you probably are getting, or maybe this is your first episode, we are all over the map with our topics, but we love it that way. Thank you. Share this with someone who you think could really use it, who's maybe a friend or family member or something who's been telling you they've been stressed or they've been staying up at night worrying about things. Then share this episode with them so that they can learn the system and really learn a different approach. It's a huge gift that you can give someone. And we're heading into the holiday season, so I love this time of year. We should have some fun, topics for you around this time. And we'll see you in the next episode. All right, everyone. See you next time. Bye-bye.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.